Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Tuesday, the 5th of July. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by recently returned traveller Joshua Barry, complete with tan and all. How are we doing, Joshua?
I've got quite a good tan, Derek, but great to be back. Yeah, I my flight was delayed, so I haven't slept all that much last night, but good to be.
Half past five you got, and that is dedication
Yeah,
back on the video.
it was a late drive from or early drive from Edinburgh, and it's always bad when you're getting home just when the sun's come up by the time it was this morning. But no, good to be here. Looking forward to catching up on everything, and have obviously been keeping my eye on what's been happening. Kind of expected maybe a player or two to be here by the time I was back at work, but yeah, that's not the case. I'm sure we'll get into that though. I know everyone knows that. I don't want to stoke any fires or anything.
Well, there has been players, but it's been young lads, and there's a young lad that signed yesterday, which we'll touch on very shortly indeed. But in terms of the first team, yeah, you're right, Joshua, that we're still awaiting that first, well, apart from John Suter, that first summer arrival, summer signing. And before we talk all things Rangers, folks, just a reminder of the housekeeping. As you can see, the little ticker below, we've still got that great offer on the website just now, and so many of you are signing up. If you sign up now, you get a free 30-day trial. You get full access as well, so you can see if it is for you. After that, it's just £2.99 per month thereafter anyway. It is an absolute bargain. Just head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe for all the details. And as you can see, the One Football app is our Rangers Review sponsor for the morning briefings, and you can see there you can keep up to date with all the latest Rangers news. You can get notifications to your phone, keep up to date with fixture lists, what's happening with the squad and what have you. The good news is it's totally free, so it won't cost you a penny, and it is available for iPhone and Android users. And not only Rangers, you can be up to date with what's going on across the rest of Scottish football and beyond, down south, and also on the continent as well. So it's a One Football app, folks. Go and get it downloaded. Okay, let's talk all things Rangers then. Joshua, I'm not too sure how abreast you were of the news when you were away. No major ins and outs as yet. They did sign Zach Lovelace. Well, that was he was paraded with the scarf above his head yesterday. 16-year-old striker from Millwall. Apparently Millwall are furious at losing him because he is such a highly rated young kid. But he will go into the B team, of course, along with a number of other players that have signed from the likes of Motherwell, Inverness, Partick Thistle and what have you. They've been really busy. Have Rangers B team and snapping up the young talent. Of course, Rory Wilson went the other way. We've seen pictures of him signing for Aston Villa. He'll go into their academy from next season. But in terms of the first team, Joshua, no arrivals as yet. We're still waiting on Antonio Colak. We're told that should be completed soon. I'm seeing some comments coming in at the moment. People are losing patience with regards to that. They're saying, when is it time to pull the plug? John Doley gets in touch. Where do you stand on the current summer activity or perhaps lack of at this stage of the season?
Well, the Colak one's interesting. Obviously, been kind of keeping up to date through you guys with what's been happening. And as you say, Derek, and we can maybe get a bit more from you on this, but looks like it will be completed. It's a matter of is it when rather than if? No, if rather than when. My brain, my lack of sleep isn't allowing me isn't allowing me to configure that sentence. But it moved quickly. We spoke about it, I think, a couple of days before I went away, which is maybe a couple of weeks ago. And the line then was that the Rangers hadn't formally put a bid in, but there was obviously clear interest. You could see the profile of striker that Colak is. You could see, as I think there was an article on the website about this, the profile of striker that Van Bronckhorst has traditionally used. And an interesting point of maybe why he was so reliant on Morelos because of the lack of suitable replacements for the kind of physical outlet that he wants at the top of the pitch. But it does look now that, obviously there's been lots of complications. It's been a bit of a strange one because it seems to have been done almost quite out in the open from the selling clubs or proposed selling clubs point of view. But I think it'd be a really exciting transfer for the fee if and when Rangers can get it done. When I spoke to someone about it, they were saying that you should provide real good competition for Morelos. I think obviously a few people have made the point that if you're recouping the money for Cedric Itten, what was it, 1.5 for Itten and Colak reportedly about 1.8 as a pretty good outlay, isn't it? I guess it just depends, Derek, on, you can understand the impatience, but Rangers must have assurance that this deal will happen. But again, it's a matter of a few formalities falling into place. But you've also, I've seen you've been busy away looking at rumours into, I think, Ellis Sims and Lewis Ferguson. Ferguson is a name that is just always linked with Rangers, and I think always will be, partly because he's one of the better players outside the old firm in the Scottish Premiership, obviously also because of his family ties. What was the kind of the information that you got around those two players potentially coming to Ibrox, either in a loan or permanent capacity this summer?
Yeah, lots of comments coming in. David Craig, what's happening with Ferguson 3.0? Listen, Lewis Ferguson is not on Rangers' radar. It's an easy link, of course, with the family history and what have you. I think until he signs for somebody, Josh, I think he's going to be linked every single transfer window. I'm told that Rangers aren't interested in him. He's not a player that they're looking at. In terms of Ellis Sims, he's a player, of course, that Rangers are well aware of. However, he is another one that they're not actively pursuing. And I believe he's, from what I'm reading, the Hearts have been priced out of a move. I'm not too sure if you can get him in on loan again, but those two are not being actively pursued by Rangers. The only bit of information we know is that Colak, I'm told, should be done soon. And see some comments sort of slating Colak himself. It's not the player's fault. At the end of the day, it's POK's club that they're looking to bring in, get a replacement in before they sell him, because once they sell him, they'll only have one available striker at their disposal. So they're wanting to cover their base. That's what's holding up the deal so far. Terms have been agreed. He's agreed personal terms. Players itching to come. But it's just one of these things that's holding up. Hopefully it's done sooner rather than later, and he can get over and mix amongst the squad. But that is the information as we have it. There was I've seen a comment here, Joshua. David McMillan, he says Aribo refused to sign a new contract. Now this is, of course, I've seen a tweet from TalkSport yesterday. I think it's old news where they say that Southampton are interested in Joe Aribo. I think it's common knowledge. However, in terms of refusing to sign a new contract, I'm not quite sure that is entirely true. I'm sure we'll do a bit of digging, folks, and we'll find out what the situation is with regards to that. But Joe Aribo is one, Joshua. I think everyone is pretty resigned to leaving in this summer window. Would you go along with that? Would you be surprised to see him lining up for Rangers next season?
Yeah, I guess because the transfer window obviously doesn't close before the season starts, maybe we'll see him line up at one point. But certainly, if you look at the quality of Joe Aribo, the reported price that he could go for, I think for clubs at that sort of Premiership level, he'd be a bit of a no-brainer signing. Obviously, he's international as well, plays a little bit deeper for his international team. I think it'll be interesting to see where Joe Aribo kind of goes and plays, if he's plays within a system, if he's given a bit of freedom with maybe one of the slightly weaker teams, if he was to go down south. I've always thought, and I remember writing this about maybe March time, one of the interesting things that Steven Gerrard once said about Joe Aribo was that after he played left back against Livingston, and he was really good at left back at the end of that title-winning season, he said something along the lines of, good players play football, something a bit cliche, great players can play anywhere.
Yeah.
He was commenting on his versatility, and I think ultimately the best of Joe Aribo that to this point in his Rangers career, and whether this is the end of his Rangers career this summer, time will tell, but that period where he had kind of complete positional freedom and then went away to the African Cup of Nations, that was, he was absolutely brilliant at that stage. And I do think that the freedom to impact the game as he wanted it and go where he wanted and really be the main man for that month alongside Alfredo Morelos, I think that brought out the very best of him. So it'll be interesting to watch. It was interesting for me as well to see that Lowry played centrally. I know he gave away a bit of cheap goal, should we say, against Partick Thistle from the highlights that we saw. But obviously he's mainly been used out left by Van Bronckhorst. There's certainly a fair amount out left, and I think this season it would be good to see him inside the pitch a lot more. I think that always shows that a manager's got a little bit more trust in a creative player if he plays him inside the pitch instead of always putting him out in the wing. You think of Aribo, for example, in a lot of Old Firm games under Gerrard. And Lowry, I think, is a ready-made creative replacement in midfield. And what I think Lowry will give you, which is quite an intangible, quite difficult to measure, the pace that he passes with and is able to break lines. I think Rangers have really lacked that without, Yanis Hadji. I think he does that when he's on form. When he's not, he can be a frustrating player. But certainly, I think Lowry will give you that. So looking forward to seeing him hopefully get some minutes at the start of the season.
Yeah, it's an interesting point here made by Danny. I think transfers are slow just now due to player renewals. Will they, won't they sign? That's probably the main reason for the lack of signings. However, should have a cut-off date, and if that means selling, then we have to take that chance. And that sort of ties in with another comment here from James. Joshua, he says, I think Aribo will at least play Champions League qualifiers this season. Sort of catch-22 situation, isn't it? Because Rangers have huge matches coming up in the Champions League qualifiers at the start of August. It's one of those. Would you rather have those players? I'm talking about Aribo, Kent, Morelos, guys that are in the final year of their contract, or would you rather take the money at this stage? That's a tough one for me. For me, you know what they can do. I'd be inclined to keep a hold of them until those ties are negotiated. Before selling them. Of course, football doesn't work like that. Would you rather keep the players that are out of contract for those matches or take the money at this stage?
I think you'd rather also have a couple of new players in. You look at the last couple of seasons, or the last 3 seasons, and the qualifiers, the final qualifiers have had a big impact on the transfer business. Obviously, Kent being the big example after was it the Legia Warsaw win, 1-0 win, the Morelos header, 2019. Galatasaray, I can't remember if anyone came in after Galatasaray, but certainly last season as well, there was a lot of rumours linking Rangers to players that would have required Champions League money. Obviously, Joey Veerman is the main name that I'm thinking of. That didn't happen, and we can only read between the lines as to why that was the case, but certainly I think the qualifiers are just so important in what transfer business can be done. It was interesting to see Scott Wright again. There's only so much you can tell from a highlights package, and Rangers play Sunderland on, is it a Saturday, Derek? It's Friday.
Yes, I'll be there. Cannot wait.
Yeah, I know you, lucky boy. I actually just looked at the roster this morning and I realised you're off your little Algarve soiree. But one of the and there's a lot, I guess, to be talked about and written about this over pre-season. One of the interesting things is what will Van Bronckhorst do in terms of his real domestic template? How does he actually want to play? And I think it will be that 4-3-3 we've seen at the start with some adaptations. Scott Wright, when he played that right wing role towards the end of last season, it was more of a hybrid role where you had Tavernier outside him sometimes. I think because Wright's delivery, final ball, was quite inconsistent for me, and he doesn't have the quality of Kent to be always isolated 1v1. But he did. He was pinned to the touchline a lot in that highlight package. He came good a little bit at the end of the season. I definitely don't personally think he's the answer at right wing, just because I don't think Rangers can really take risks. I think they need a player of similar quality to Ryan Kent. You remember the game, the away leg against RB Leipzig, and Scott Wright did really well in the Europa League. But certainly at times, I think you see the quality difference between a player like him and a player like Ryan Kent. And
he struggled in that game.
Yeah, he did. And I think if Rangers are going to go into that early season without an option on that right wing, and it, maybe be Arfield playing there in some patches, right? I just really think that area needs freshened up, and I'm sure obviously the club will know that, and I'm sure they'll be working tirelessly in the background to get said players in. But you can understand that everyone, all supporters, will want signings, because that's what else is there to talk about when the football's not here, and also you want to see a side strengthened that in the league certainly needed strengthening in some areas.
Yeah, Duncan says Derek away on the jolly yet again.
I know,
Covering Rangers is not a jolly, Duncan. I refute that comment. Thank you very much. A comment coming in here, an interesting one from Kenny. All gone quiet on Bassett. Do you expect bids for him, lads? It has gone quiet, hasn't it, Joshua?
Yeah.
After the Europa League final and Scottish Cup final, it was talk was that a lot of clubs sniffing about him, but it has sort of dwindled away. I'm more optimistic that he's going to be a Rangers player next season. He's one that's not in the final year of his contract, so I don't think he's a priority for Ross Wilson to tie down, even though as high up in the list, I think, just in terms of covering Rangers financially. I'm optimistic he's going to be a Rangers player next season. Joshua, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one with Bassett because, as we discussed at the time, I think everyone would like to see him play more games for Rangers because of how good he was. But equally, he'll never be as maybe as attractive a signing, and will make Rangers as much money as off the back of that Europa League final. I watched back kind of his individual clips from that final, his 1v1 defending, and it's just a joke. You forget just how good he was in that final. And if Rangers had won that final, I think Bassett would have definitely been kind of the protagonist of that match. I guess the question is, what does he start at left back in the league? Because presuming he's going to be around for, if you say maybe this season, Derek, or even until later in the window, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what bids will come in. Where does he play? Where's his best position? I think that's still to be worked out. We had some writing on the piece on the website earlier this week about the benefit of a left-footed centre back, and Hollander's had a really bad season with injuries again. I find it hard to believe that he'll be number one under Van Bronckhorst, especially because of his kind of different style of defending under Van Bronckhorst to Gerrard. John Souttar's been brought in, but he's more natural playing on the right. I'm sure he can play on the left, but I don't see Connor Goldson being moved from that right-sided spot. So do you then play Calvin Bassett? He allows Rangers to be so aggressive as well. So it'll be interesting to see what Van Bronckhorst does there, because the other thing is Borna Barisic could come back and have the best 3 months of his life, or he could have a difficult couple of months, and that's probably very dependent on where Bassett plays. I don't know if there is a first choice left back though, purely because we don't know if Bassett's viewed predominantly as a centre back or a left back at the moment.
Yeah. Duncan says, mind lifted factor 50, Derek. Yeah, don't you worry about that, Duncan. I'll be taking a separate case for all my sun creams. It's set to be sweltering over there. So
when are you off, Derek? What can you give us any information on your trip? What's the kind of lineup?
Thursday we fly out. I fly out. Friday, go and have a little swatch of where the team are training and what have you. Hopefully speak to the manager and see what's what. And then obviously Saturday for the game. Hope to speak to a number of supporters. I know that Rangers will be well represented over there. So if you see me out and about, then come and have a chat. I'd be really interested in speaking to you. So yeah, can't wait for the weekend. Good friend of the show, Graham Morrison, gets in touch. Morning, lads. Focus should be on the league. Sell now, reuse the transfer money to refresh the first team. League is a priority straight into the Champions League next season. Listen, the league is a priority. It is every season, Joshua, at the start of the campaign. Come the tail end of last season, I would argue it wasn't a priority, and the Europa League took precedence. But every start of every campaign, I think you need to win. It's the bread and butter, isn't it? And based on the fact that Rangers relinquished the title last season, I think it's important that they take they wrestle that back from Celtic, who have spent a bit of money. That is noticeable. I know people have been saying, but they've spent a lot of money on retaining players from last season, which is true. But they're not going to stand still, Joshua. So I think it's going to be tight next season. I can't see Celtic dropping many points. I've got to be honest. Domestically, they were on a great run in the league. Rangers need to make sure they have the players in place for the start of the season. And remember, it just starts under 4 weeks from now, away to Livingston. It'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, absolutely. And last season was just. I think it'll still be hard to kind of contextualised and explained for a long time, and that's sometimes the good part of football, is that it's not easy to put in a box. It could, we could be sitting here in a month, Derek, with Rangers, well, maybe not quite through into the Champions League, but let's say give or take a month, in a good position in the Champions League qualifiers, having signed a couple of players, a couple of new contracts, or Rangers could have not made it through the Champions League qualifiers. So I think the narrative of it was a good decision to wait and spend or not will be very dependent on results, but so too probably is the ability to go and sign these players. And there is so much going on, obviously, because of all these contracts as well. And I think stuff will become a little bit more clear, especially as pre-season kind of formally kicks off with, some more media stuff, as you say, in Portugal, the game against Sunderland. But yeah, the squad depth, I don't think anyone would argue. Obviously, back in April, everyone thinks the squad needs an overhaul because of the results, and I think that was a fair comment at the time. Things started to change, and Van Bronckhorst seems to start to get a little bit more of a rhythm out of the squad, because let's not forget, after that 1-0 loss away at Braga in particular, I think there was real questions over what were Rangers really trying to do. They look a very different side to the last time they played in Braga, for better or for worse. Is this an evolution of what they're doing or a regression? Obviously, the European results were magnificent and kind of stood alone as themselves. But I think there was also signs that, especially in the domestic cup competitions, that was so important. I was watching back the highlights of the Old Firm win at Hampden in the 2-1 game, and you remember when Carter Vickers hits the crossbar at 1-0. I just think that's such a big moment in Van Bronckhorst's Rangers career, and it's one of these, hopefully will be looked back upon as one of these sliding doors moments between success and non-success. Because if Rangers had went and lost there and kind of given up the treble, that would have been a really damaging end to the season. Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. It certainly seems that Van Bronckhorst is one of the main players in terms of keeping this squad together, keeping key older players together. I wrote at the time of McGregor's extension about the core of the team that he had at Feyenoord, with Brad Jones and El Amadi in midfield, Dirk Kuyt up front. So yeah, I guess you've got to also trust what the manager and what he wants. But I'm sure, as I say, there'll be movement quite soon.
Yeah. I think I agree with regards to that. I like this comment from John Knox, who gets in touch. He says, Scott Sport has done. Sports scene is poo. Come on, lads, support the Rangers review. Couldn't agree more, John. That is nicely put, I have to say. So it's great to have your support and everyone else interacting with the programme. That will do us today, folks. Thanks to everyone again for tuning in. And giving us your comments. Sorry if I never got to it. Remember, just a reminder of our offer we've got on the website just now. If you sign up now, you get a free 30-day trial. You get absolute full access as well. Just £2.99 per month thereafter. It's an absolute bargain. Head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe for all the details and get yourself signed up. Okay, we'll be back again tomorrow, but until then, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.